Story 1. My family thought I was broke, until the bank called them about the $5 million they accidentally deposited in my account. The voicemail played for the third time, my mother's voice sharp with panic. The bank just called us about a $5 million deposit in your account. What the hell did you do, Jason? Are you stealing from us now? I sat there, phone clutched in my hand, staring at the cracked screen of my decade-old laptop. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, my family treated me like a financial leper, the black sheep who couldn't hold down a job, the disappointment who wasted his life on a writing career instead of joining the family real estate empire. And now, suddenly, they thought I was a thief. But the truth? The money was mine. Let me back up. I was the quiet one in the Whitman family, the one who sat in the corner at Christmas dinners while my older brother Daniel bragged about closing another $1 million deal, and my sister, Lauren, name-dropped her country club friends. My parents? They were the kind of people who measured success in square footage and car models. And me? I wrote novels that barely paid my rent. At least, that's what they thought. What they didn't know, what I'd let them believe, was that 3 years ago, one of my books got picked up by a major streaming platform. The deal was life-changing. But after a lifetime of being looked down on, of hearing, "When are you going to get a real job? And you'll never be as driven as your brother," I kept it to myself. I didn't buy a mansion. I didn't upgrade my car. I stayed in my tiny apartment, kept wearing my thrift store clothes, and let them assume nothing had changed. And oh, the way they treated me. The generous handouts of $50 at birthdays, like I was some charity case. The way my brother would joke about hiring me as his assistant. At least then you'd have health insurance. The pity in my mother's voice every time she asked, "Are you sure you're eating enough?" I let it all happen, because part of me wanted to see how far they'd go. Then came the phone call. Not from me, not from any lawyer or accountant. No, the bank called them. See, my parents had set up a joint account for me when I was a teenager, one they technically never removed themselves from. A safety net, they called it, though it always felt more like a leash. And when that massive deposit hit, the bank flagged it not to me, but to them got the first call from my dad was a masterpiece of condescension. "Jason, we need to talk. There's been a mistake, a serious mistake. You need to come to the house." Now, I could practically hear the unspoken words, "Before we call the police." So I went, and when I walked into their marble-floored foyer, the air was thick with accusation. My father stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, while my mother clutched her pearls literally. Daniel smirked like he'd already won. "We know about the money," my dad said, voice low, "and we know you couldn't have earned it. So tell us the truth. Did you take it from the company?" I almost laughed, because of course that's where their minds went. Not maybe Jason finally succeeded. Not could this be his? No, straight to, he must have stolen it. I took my time answering. Let the silence stretch. Watched my mother's frown deepen, my brother's smirk falter. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out the one thing I knew would shatter their reality. The contract, my name on it, my book, my 7-figure deal plus royalties. The look on their faces, priceless. But this was only the beginning, because now they knew. And nothing would ever be the same. The silence in the room was so thick I could hear my mother's sharp inhale, the creak of my father's leather shoes as he shifted his weight. Daniel's smirk had vanished, replaced by something I'd never seen before: uncertainty. I let the contract sit on the coffee table between us. The pages fanned out just enough for them to see the studio's logo, the numbers bold and undeniable. You sold a book?" Lauren finally whispered, as if the concept was foreign. 3, I corrected. This was just the one that got adapted. My father's face darkened. He reached for the papers, scanning them with the same intensity he used to review contracts for his precious real estate deals. I watched his jaw tighten, his fingers pressing so hard into the pages they left faint wrinkles. "This says it's been 3 years," he said slowly. "You've had this money for 3 years?" I nodded. "And you didn't think to tell us?" My mother's voice cracked, not with pride, but betrayal, like I'd personally insulted her by keeping my success a secret. That's when it hit me. They weren't upset because they thought I'd stolen from them. They were upset because I'd proven them wrong. Daniel recovered first. "Okay, so you got lucky with some book deal. Big deal. That doesn't explain why the bank called us about your account." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "Because it's still technically a joint account. The one you and Mom never removed yourselves from. Remember? The safety net?" My father's nostrils flared. "That was for emergencies. Not for," he gestured at the contract like it was something dirty. "This. Funny," I said, "because I don't recall you ever asking if I needed help. You just assumed I was failing." The room went still again. Then, like clockwork, the excuses started. "We did help you," my mother insisted. "We gave you money at Christmas. $50, I deadpanned. Once a year. Meanwhile, Daniel got a down payment for his 3rd rental property." Daniel scoffed. "That's because I actually earned my money. You just got lucky." I could have laughed. Luck. As if the years of rejection letters, the sleepless nights, the ramen noodle dinners meant nothing. As if they hadn't spent every family gathering subtly, and not so subtly, reminding me I was the unsuccessful one. But the best part? They still didn't get it. "Look," my father said, rubbing his temples like he was the victim here. "We're happy for you, but this changes nothing. Money doesn't erase the fact that you've been lying to us for years." "Lying?" I repeated. "Or just not telling you?" "Same thing," my mother snapped. I smiled. "Then I guess we're even." That got their attention. "What's that supposed to mean?" Daniel demanded. I reached into my bag again. This time, I pulled out a folder. And inside, every loan, every investment, every dime my parents had ever given Daniel and Lauren, with interest calculations. "You want to talk about lying?" I said softly. "Let's talk about how you never told me you were bankrolling their lives. Let's talk about how I was the one who had to figure it out when I saw the company books last year." My father paled. "You went through the books?" "Yep." I flipped the folder open. Turns out, the family business has been bleeding money for years. And guess who's been covering the losses? I let that hang in the air. Because the truth? They weren't rich. They were broke. And I was the only one who didn't know. My father's hands trembled as he reached for the folder. For the first time in my life, I saw real fear in his eyes. Not concern for me, but panic at being exposed. "Where did you get these?" His voice was low, dangerous. "The same place I found out about the second mortgage on this house," I said, nodding at the vaulted ceilings around us. "Public records are a hell of a thing." Lauren made a choked noise. "What second mortgage?" Daniel's face twisted. "He's bluffing." I pulled out another sheet, the lien notice I dug up last month. "You really thought I wouldn't notice? When Mom borrowed my social security number to co-sign that loan last year, my mother actually gasped. Jason, that was just fraud." I finished. "Yeah, pretty sure the bank would agree." The room erupted. Lauren started crying. Daniel lunged for the papers like he could shred the truth. My father just stood there, his carefully constructed empire crumbling in real time. And then came the pivot. "We're family," my dad said suddenly, voice softening in a way I hadn't heard since childhood. "Surely we can work this out. That money in your account is mine," I cut in. Every penny. But the bank account was never supposed to be your business. Yet here we are. I stood up, suddenly exhausted. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign a notarized release, removing yourselves from that account. Today. Or I file a police report about the identity theft. My mother actually clutched her chest. You wouldn't. I met her gaze. Try me. Daniel, ever the pragmatist, was the first to break. Fine, whatever. But you're not just walking away from this family. Oh, I'm not walking away, I said, heading for the door. I'm being pushed out, same as always. I left them there, staring at the evidence of their own collapse. But here's what they didn't know. This wasn't revenge. It was survival. And the game had just begun. The notary public's office was quiet, except for the scratch of pens on paper. My parents sat across from me, their signatures still wet on the account release forms. My father's hand had shaken the entire time, not from guilt, I knew, but from the sheer indignity of being forced to comply. Happy now? He muttered, sliding the documents toward me. I didn't answer, just tucked the papers into my bag and stood to leave. That's when my mother grabbed my wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong for someone who played the fragile matriarch so well. Jason, wait. Let's talk about this like adults. I looked down at her perfectly manicured fingers digging into my skin, the same hands that had patted my head dismissively for years whenever I mentioned my writing. We just did, I said, gently pulling free. Daniel blocked the doorway. You're really going to screw over your own family over some stupid pride? The laugh burst out of me before I could stop it. Pride? You think this is about pride? I stepped closer, close enough to smell his expensive cologne, the same brand our father wore. This is about the fact that you all treated me like a failure. For a decade, while secretly being the ones who were drowning. The hypocrisy would be funny if it wasn't so pathetic. Lauren, who'd been silent through the whole exchange, suddenly spoke up. We didn't know you were struggling. Bullshit. The word came out sharper than I intended. You knew. You just didn't care, unless it made you look bad. The notary coughed uncomfortably. Perhaps you'd like to continue this outside. We spilled onto the sidewalk, the midday sun glaring down on our little family implosion. My father adjusted his tie his tell when he was about to play the reasonable one. Son, clearly there's been misunderstandings on both sides. But blood is thicker than water. Surely we can. The full quote is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. I interrupted. It means the bonds you choose matter more than the ones you're born into. I backed toward my car, a modest sedan they'd mocked for years. And I'm done choosing you. I expected more arguments, more guilt. What I didn't expect was my mother's whispered, "We'll see about that," as I turned away. The first warning came 3 days later. An email from my publisher. We've received a concerning letter questioning your rights to the adapted material. The second warning came when my landlord called. Someone's been asking very specific questions about your lease. By the time the Instagram post went live, grainy photo of me at a college party a decade ago with the caption, "Real genius behind the best-selling book," I realized exactly how dirty my family was willing to fight. But they'd made one fatal mistake. They assumed I'd play by their rules. And I'd spent my whole life writing better plots than this. The Instagram post was just the beginning. Within 48 hours, anonymous sources were telling gossip sites that my best-selling novel had been ghostwritten. My mother's church friends suddenly remembered concerns about my childhood creativity. And Daniel, always the businessman, gave an interview to a finance blog about protecting intellectual property from unstable family members. I sat in my apartment watching the digital wildfire spread, my phone buzzing nonstop with calls from reporters, my agent, and one very panicked studio executive. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, I'd begged my family to take my writing seriously. Now they were treating it like a crime scene. The voicemail from my publisher's legal department was the final straw. "Jason, we need to discuss damage control. The studio's getting cold feet about the adaptation." I deleted it mid-playback. Then I opened my laptop and began typing what would become the most read post of my life. Title: My family stole $5 million from me. Here's how I'm taking it back. 3 days ago, my parents and siblings tried to destroy my writing career because I refused to bail out their failing real estate empire. Here's the paper trail, ... I attached everything. The loan documents with forged signatures. The bank statements showing transfers from my childhood account to their business. The recorded phone call, legal in our state, of Daniel joking about. Bleeding little brother dry. And finally, the piece de resistance, the email from my father to their accountant. If Jason's book money hits the joint account, we can claim its repayment for his debts. I hit publish at 3:17 a.m. By sunrise, it had 100,000 shares. By noon, #Whitman family fraud was trending. And at exactly 2:43 p.m., my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in years, my grandmother's lawyer. "Jason," the old man's voice crackled. "Your grandmother left you something. We should talk." Turns out, Nana Ruth had been the only one who saw this coming. Her will included a single line about me. Give him the box when they show their true colors. Inside that box, enough evidence to bury my family forever. Story 2. My son cut me off for being too poor. Then his wife left him when she found out I owned half the town. Asterisk, the last time my son spoke to me, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Dad, I can't have you around my family anymore. You're embarrassing." Not, "I love you." Not, "Thanks for raising me." Just embarrassing. And why? Because at his daughter's 5th birthday party, I showed up in my old rusted truck instead of a luxury car. Because I wore my usual thrift store flannel instead of a designer polo. Because when his wife's snobby friends asked what I did for a living, I just smiled and said, "Oh, a little of this, a little of that." They assumed I was broke. And my son, my own flesh and blood led. Them. I'll never forget the way his wife, Jessica, wrinkled her nose when I handed our granddaughter a handmade wooden rocking horse I'd spent months carving in my workshop. "Oh, how quaint," she said, like it was a dirty word. My son, Daniel, just laughed nervously and steered her away, whispering something about how Dad's always been a little eccentric. Eccentric. That's one word for it. But here's the thing they didn't know, the thing nobody knew. I didn't look rich because I didn't care about looking rich. While they were leasing BMWs to impress their neighbors, I owned half the damn town. And when Daniel cut me out of his life for being too poor, he had no idea he was burning the only bridge that could have saved him. Let me back up. I wasn't always discreet about my money. When Daniel was a kid, we lived comfortably. Not flashy, but solid. His mom, Linda, God rest her soul, was a teacher, and I ran a small construction business. We had a nice house, took vacations, paid for his college, normal stuff. But after Linda passed, something in me changed. The grief was unbearable, and the last thing I wanted was to be some lonely old man throwing money around to fill the void. So I sold the business quietly, invested in real estate under shell companies, and just disappeared into the background. I didn't hide my wealth from Daniel. I just never flaunted it. And he never asked. By the time he met Jessica, I was living in a modest cabin outside town, driving that same old truck, wearing clothes with more patches than original fabric. I liked the simplicity, the peace, but Jessica was all about appearances. The first time she came to my place for dinner, I saw her eyes dart around, taking in the mismatched plates, the hand-me-down furniture. She asked what I did for a living, and when I shrugged and said, "I'm retired," her smile tightened. Daniel noticed, and from that moment on, he started pulling away. At first, it was little things forgetting to invite me to family gatherings, making excuses when I offered to babysit. Then came the comments. "Dad, maybe you should get a newer car. Dad, can't you dress up a little when we go out?" I laughed it off. Why? Uncomfortable. But then came the final straw. Jessica's parents were in town big shot lawyers from the city. We met at some overpriced steakhouse, and when the bill came, Jessica made a show of handing her card to the waiter, before I could even reach for my wallet. "Oh, don't worry, Jim," she said, patting my arm like I was a charity case. "We've got it." Daniel wouldn't even look at me. That night, I got the call. "Dad, I think it's better if we take some space. Jessica's worried about the influence you might have on Sophie." Influence. Because God forbid my granddaughter. Learned that happiness isn't bought. I didn't beg, didn't argue. Just said, "All right, son, if that's what you want." And just like that, I was out of their lives. But here's the kicker, the thing that makes this whole mess so damn poetic. Jessica didn't leave Daniel because he was cruel. She left him because she found out I wasn't poor. And by then, it was too late for either of them. For 6 months, after Daniel cut me off, I didn't hear a word from him. No calls, no texts, not even a birthday card. It was like I didn't exist. At first, I told myself it was just a phase, that he'd come around once he realized how ridiculous he was being. But as the weeks dragged on, the silence settled into something heavier, something final. I threw myself into my work, not that. Anyone knew it was my work. My properties were managed under layers of LLCs, handled by a discreet firm that kept my name off everything. To the outside world, I was just Jim, the quiet old guy who fixed up furniture in his garage. Then, one rainy Tuesday, my phone rang. It was Daniel. My heart jumped into my throat. Maybe he was calling to apologize. Maybe he'd finally realized how stupid this whole thing was. I answered. "Dad." His voice was tight. "I need to talk to you." No, "Hey, how are you?" No, "I miss you." Just, "I need to talk to you." I should have known, right? Then it wasn't about me. We met at a diner halfway between my place and his. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his hair messier, than I'd ever seen it. The expensive watch Jessica had given him for their anniversary was gone. He didn't even wait for the coffee to arrive before he blurted out, "Jessica left me." I didn't react, just sipped my coffee and waited. He ran a hand through his hair. She took Sophie, moved back in with her parents. She's filing for divorce. I nodded slowly. "I'm sorry to hear that, son." He flinched at the word son, like it was a knife, twisting any wound he didn't want to acknowledge. "She's saying I misled her," he muttered. "That I hid things from her. But I swear I didn't know." "Know what?" I asked, even though I already had a guess. He looked at me like I was holding a gun to his head. "That you own half the damn town, Dad." The story spilled out of him in jagged pieces. A few weeks earlier, Jessica had been at some charity gala, schmoozing with the city's elite, when she overheard a conversation between two real estate developers. "We'd have to check with Jim's people first," one of them said. "He owns that whole block." Jessica, always hungry for connections, perked up. "Jim who?" The man laughed. "Jim Wilson. The guy's a ghost, never shows his face, but he's got his fingers in everything. Rumor is he could buy out the mayor if he wanted to. My last name isn't Wilson. It's the name of one of my shell companies, one Jessica had seen on my mailbox when she'd reluctantly dropped off Christmas presents last year. She'd put the pieces together. And when she confronted Daniel, he had nothing to say because he hadn't known. "Why didn't you tell me?" he demanded, voice cracking. "All those years. Why let me think you were some broke old man?" I set my coffee down. "You never asked." He looked like I'd slapped him. "That's not the point," he snapped. You let me cut you off because you thought I wasn't good enough for your new life," I finished quietly. The silence between us was thicker than the diner's stale air. Then, in a voice so small, I barely recognized. He said, "I need your help." Jessica wasn't just divorcing him, she was going for full custody. And without my money, he couldn't fight her. I leaned back in the booth. Funny how that works, isn't it? The waitress came by to refill our coffees, her eyes flickering. Between us, like she could sense the tension. Daniel stared into his mug like it held the answers to all his problems. "Dad," he said finally, "I know I messed up, but Sophie's my daughter. I can't lose her." I let that hang in the air for a long moment. "And what exactly do you want from me?" He swallowed hard. "Jessica's lawyers are saying I can't provide stability, that I don't have the resources to give Sophie the life she's used to." A bitter laugh escaped him. "She's the one who blew through our savings on designer crap, but now I'm the irresponsible one." I tapped my fingers against the table. "So you need money." "I need help," he insisted. "You could testify. Show the court that our family has assets, that I'm not some deadbeat." "Our family," I repeated. Funny, 6 months ago, I wasn't. Family. I was an embarrassment. His face flushed. "I was wrong, okay? Is that what you want to hear? I was stupid and shallow, and I let Jessica get in my head. But this isn't about me. It's about Sophie. She adores you." That stung. I missed that little girl more than I'd let myself admit. Her sticky-handed hugs, the way she dragged me to the floor to play with that damn rocking horse Jessica, had shoved in a closet. But this wasn't just about Sophie. "Here's the thing, Daniel," I said slowly. "You didn't just cut me off. You let her treat me like dirt. You stood by while she mocked the things I made for Sophie. You agreed that I wasn't good enough to be around your kid." He opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. "So before I even think about helping you, I need to know, are you sorry because you actually mean it? Or are you sorry because you just found out your old man's wallet is thicker than yours?" The silence that followed was so thick you could have carved it with a knife. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face went pale. "It's her lawyer," he muttered. "There, pushing for an emergency custody hearing." I leaned forward. "Well, son, you'd better decide whose side you're really on." Daniel's hands shook as he put his phone down. For the first time in years, I saw real fear in my son's eyes. Not the performative panic he'd perfected for Jessica's dramatics, but something raw, something human. "They're saying I'm unfit," he whispered. "That I've got unstable financial prospects and questionable judgment." He let out a hollow laugh. "Jessica's been keeping records, Dad. Every time I missed a school event because of work, every argument we had about money. She's twisting it all." I studied him. The expensive watch might be gone, but the tan line on his wrist was still there, just like the ghost of the man he used to be before Jessica sanded him down into something shiny and compliant. "You know what your problem is, Daniel?" I said. "You spent so long pretending to be someone else that you forgot how to be yourself." He flinched. "I didn't have a choice. Jessica's whole family, they look down on anyone who doesn't what? Drive a BMW? Wear a Rolex?" I leaned in. "Tell me something. When was the last time Sophie saw you happy?" That stopped him cold. The diner door chimed as a group of construction workers walked in. their boots muddy, their laughter loud. Daniel watched them with an expression. I couldn't quite place something between envy and regret. "Remember when you were 10? I said quietly. "You begged me to take you to work with me every Saturday. You'd wear that little tool belt Linda got you. Help me hammer scrap wood together." A flicker of a smile. "I made her a jewelry box. It was terrible. She used it till the day she died." His throat worked. "Jessica threw it out when we moved," said it looked tacky. There it was. A crack in the facade. I slid a business card across the table my lawyer's, the one who'd handled my quiet empire for decades. "Call him. Tell him I sent you." Daniel stared at it like it might bite him. "You're helping me?" "No," I said, standing. "I'm helping Sophie. But if we're going to do this, we do it my way. And step 1? I tossed a 20 on the table. "You're gonna need to buy some flannel." Daniel stared at the business card like it was written in a foreign language. His fingers hovered over it before finally snatching it up, as if afraid I might change my mind. "Your way?" he repeated, skepticism creeping into his voice. "What does that even mean?" I smirked. "It means we're not playing Jessica's game. She wants to paint you as some broke, unstable failure? Fine, let her." His face twisted in confusion. "How the hell is that helping me?" I leaned in, lowering my voice. "Because by the time we're done, the court won't care about your bank account. They'll care about hers." The realization dawned slowly. Daniel had spent years bending over backward to meet Jessica's standards, her designer tastes, her social climbing, her obsession with appearances. And now? Now she was the one who'd look shallow. "You're gonna fight dirty," he murmured. I shrugged. "I'm gonna fight smart." 2 days later, Daniel showed up at my cabin, wearing the same wrinkled polo he'd had on at the diner. Dark. Circles deeper than ever. The lawyer had told him to lay low, to stop trying to look like the perfect corporate dad Jessica had crafted. "Her lawyer subpoenaed my financial records," he said, pacing my living room. "They're digging into everything." "Good," I said, sanding down the edge of a new wooden toy duck, this time for Sophie. "Good? Dad, they're going to see how much debt we were in. The credit cards, Exactly." I blew sawdust off the duck's wing. "And who maxed out those cards? Who insisted on the house you couldn't afford? The private preschool?" Daniel froze. "You want me to throw her under the bus?" "I want you to tell the truth," I corrected. For once, he sank onto my couch, the fight draining out of him. "What if it's not enough?" I set the duck down. "Then we show them what real stability looks like." The custody hearing was set for 3 weeks out. Plenty of time. Plenty of time for Jessica to post smug Instagram stories from her parents' pool. Plenty of time for Daniel to be seen coaching Sophie's t-ball team in last year's sneakers. And plenty of time for a certain anonymous tip to reach the court about Jessica's close friendship with her divorce attorney. Poetic justice? Maybe, but this was just the beginning. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Daniel moved into my cabin, not because he had nowhere else to go, though his apartment lease had mysteriously fallen through, but because I needed him where I could see him, where I could shape him. The first night, he stood in the doorway of his old childhood room, now my woodshop, staring at the twin bed I'd shoved between table saws. "You're joking." I tossed him a set of folded flannel sheets. "You wanted my help. This is what help looks like." By day, he worked remotely from my kitchen table and clothes I'd bought at the damn Goodwill. By night, we strategized with my lawyer over bourbon, the cheap kind, the kind that made Daniel's nose wrinkle until I reminded him, "This is who you are now." And Sophie? Every custody visit, Daniel showed up early to the playground in his battered truck, homemade peanut butter sandwiches in hand. No more designer snack packs. No more monogrammed sweater vests. Just a dad and his kid, laughing as they fed ducks bread crusts from a Ziploc bag. Jessica's lawyer sneered at our poverty cosplay. But the court-appointed child advocate, she took notes. Then came the text. Daniel's phone buzzed during getting a photo from Jessica's mom. Sophie, grinning in a sequined dress, perched on the lap of some silver-haired guy in a suit at a country club. "Who the hell is that?" Daniel growled. I squinted. Charles Whitmore. Owns half the car dealerships in the state. Jessica's parents have been trying to set them up since your separation papers were filed. Daniel's fork clattered to the floor. She's parading our daughter in front of her. Yep. I sipped my coffee. Now you see why we're doing this. The next morning, Daniel emerged from his room in paint-stained jeans and work boots I hadn't seen since college. "Teach me how to make a treehouse," he said. Now that was my boy got the morning of the custody hearing arrived with a heavy summer rain. Daniel stood in front of my cracked bathroom mirror, wrestling with a tie that had last seen daylight at his wedding. "Stop fidgeting," I said, tossing him a thermos of coffee. "You look respectable." That's the worst thing you can do to her today. He glared at his reflection, clean-shaven, hair trimmed, but still in the same broken-in boots we'd worn to. Build Sophie's treehouse last weekend. The perfect picture of a man who'd changed. Jessica, on the other hand, had taken the bait beautifully. We spotted her outside the courthouse, perched under a designer umbrella in a suit that cost more than Daniel's last car payment. Her eyes flicked over us with barely disguised disgust. "Jim," she said coolly, "I didn't realize you'd be involved." I smiled. Family sticks together. Her lawyer, not the one she'd been cozying up to, I noticed, ushered her inside. Before she could retort, the hearing was a slaughter. Jessica's team led with their strongest argument, Daniel's financial instability. They projected bank statements showing his drained accounts, his credit card debt. Then my lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, if we might examine why these accounts were depleted." Receipts flashed across the screen. A $12,000 Chanel handbag. A $15,000 girls' trip to CABO. A $28,000 country club initiation fee dated 2 weeks after she'd filed for divorce. Jessica's face went sheet white. "Now," my lawyer continued, "let's compare this to my client's current living situation. Cue the photos. Daniel reading to Sophie in the treehouse. Them baking cookies in my cabin's tiny kitchen. The handwritten notes from Sophie's teacher praising his newfound involvement in her schooling. A judge's eyebrows climbed higher with each exhibit. Then came the knockout punch, a sworn statement from the child advocate. Sophie told me, and I quote, "Daddy's house smells like wood and pancakes. I like it better." Jessica's manicured nails dug into the table. We won temporary custody, not because of my money, not because of Jessica's mistakes, but because for the first time in years, Daniel had finally remembered how to be a father instead of a prop. And as we walked out of that courtroom, Sophie barreling into his arms, that was worth more than every damn property I owned.
Story 3. My son blamed me for his failures, so I told him the truth about his real father. I never thought I'd be the kind of mother who airs her dirty laundry on the internet. But here I am, spilling my guts on Reddit because I can't carry this. Wait anymore? My name's Karenya. I know. Insert joke here, but I'm 52. It's a single mom who's spent the last 30 years scraping by, raising a son who just turned 28 and decided to shatter what's left of my heart. Last night, he screamed at me in our tiny kitchen, blaming me for every failure in his life. His dead-end job, string of failed relationships, his inability to make it like his friends. He said I ruined him by being too strict, too poor, too everything. And in that moment, with tears streaming down my face and my hands shaking on the counter, I finally snapped. I told him the truth about his real father, The man he thought was his dad, the one who walked out on us when he was 5, wasn't his biological father at all. And now, everything's blown to hell. I don't know if I'm the asshole here or if this is some twisted form of justice, but I need to get this out before it eats me alive. Let me take you back to where it all started, because this isn't just about one explosive fight. It's about decades of secrets, lies, and the kind of betrayal that festers like an open wound. I met my ex-husband, Mark, when I was 22. He was charming, ambitious, the kind of guy who could talk his way into any room. We got married young, too. Young, probably in a little church in Ohio with our families cheering us on. I was working as a receptionist at a dental office, and Mark was climbing the ladder at a sales firm. We dreamed of the white picket fence, kids, the whole American. Dream package. But dreams have a way of cracking under pressure. Our first few years were okay bumpy, but okay. Mark traveled a lot for work, leaving me alone in our starter home, staring at the walls and wondering if this was all there was to life. I wanted a baby so badly. It was like this ache in my chest that wouldn't go away. We tried for 2 years, doctor's appointments, fertility tests, the works. Turns out Mark had a low sperm count. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to make conception tricky. He took it hard, like it was a blow to his manhood. We'd fight about it. Him accusing me of not trying hard enough, me crying myself to sleep. Looking back, that's when the cracks really started showing. Then entered David. He was Mark's best friend from college. It's the one who always showed up at our barbecues with a six-pack and a grin that could light up the room. David was divorced, no kids, running his own auto repair shop. He was the opposite of Mark, rough around the edges, but kind in a way that made you feel seen. One night, about 4 years into our marriage, Mark was on another business trip, and David came over to fix our leaky faucet. I was lonely, vulnerable, nursing a glass of wine while he worked. We talked for hours about life, regrets, the things we wished we'd done differently. One thing led to another, and, well, you can guess. It was a mistake, a stupid, impulsive mistake born out of desperation and too much Chardonnay. But it happened just that once. I swore it had never happened again, and David agreed. We buried it deep and pretended it never was. A month later, I found out I was pregnant. The joy was overwhelming. Mark was ecstatic, convinced it was a miracle from all our efforts. I didn't have the hearts or the courage to tell him otherwise. David kept his distance after that, respecting the boundaries we'd shattered. Our son Alex was born healthy and screaming, with Mark's last name on the birth certificate and David's eyes staring back at me every time I looked at him. God, those eyes hazeled with flecks of gold, nothing like Mark's brown or my blue. But no one noticed, or if they did, they didn't say anything. Life moved on. Raising Alex was my everything. Mark and I tried to make it work, but the traveling never stopped, and neither did the arguments. When Alex was 5, Mark came home one day and announced he was leaving. He'd met someone else's younger coworker on one of his trips. Pregnant, he said flatly, like he was discussing the weather. And this time, I know it's mine. The irony hit me like a truck, but I swallowed it down. He packed his bags, signed the divorce papers, and vanished into his new life, sending sporadic child support checks that barely covered the basics. I was left with a kindergartner who cried for his daddy every night, and a secret that gnawed. At my soul, I threw myself into being the best mom I could. Worked 2 jobs days at the dental office, nights waitressing to keep a roof over our heads. Alex was a good kid, mostly. Smart but sensitive, always picking up on my stress. I'd tuck him in and tell him stories about his dad painting. Mark as some heroic figure who had to go away for work, okay? Lies upon lies, building this fragile house of cards. As he got older, the questions came. Why doesn't Dad call more? Why can't we visit him? I deflect, change the subject, pour more love into him to fill the voids. But voids don't fill easy. By high school, Alex started acting, outskipping classes, hanging with the wrong crowd. I'd ground him, we'd yell, but underneath it all, I knew he was hurting from Mark's absence. Mark had his new family, by then 2 daughters, with his second. Wife and Alex was an afterthought, a birthday card with a $50 bill if we were lucky. I tried to compensate, saving every penny for his college fund, encouraging his dreams of becoming an engineer. He got into a decent state school, but that's when things really spiraled. College was tough for him. He partied too much, grades slipped, and he dropped out after 2 years, blaming the system and bad professors. Back home, he bounced from job to job, retail, delivery gigs, nothing sticking. Girlfriends came and went, each breakup leaving him more bitter. I'd listen to his rants, offer advice. But he'd twist it around. You never taught me how to be a man, Mom. Dad left because of you, didn't he? You drove him away. Stung. But I'd bite my tongue, thinking my love would eventually heal him. Fast. Forward to now, Alex lives with me still in the same cramped house, working part-time at a warehouse while figuring things out. Last night, it all boiled over. He came home late, reeking of beer after another job interview gone south. "This is your fault," he shouted, slamming cabinets. "You raised me to be weak. If Dad was around, I'd be successful. But you screwed that up. You're the reason I'm a failure." I stood there, heart pounding, years of sacrifice flashing before. My eyes, the late nights, the skipped meals, the secrets I'd kept to protect him. And something inside me broke. "Alex," I said, my voice trembling, "Mark isn't your real father." He froze, laughter bubbling up like he thought it was a joke. "What the hell are you talking about?" I told him everything, the affair with David, the pregnancy, the lies, how David had wanted to be involved, but I'd pushed him away to keep the peace. How Mark left anyway, oblivious. Alex's face went from confusion to rage to something shattered. "You're lying," he whispered, but I pulled out the old photo album, showing him pictures of David side by side with his own baby photos. The resemblance was undeniable. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame cracked. I haven't heard from him since, and now I'm sitting here questioning everything. Was I wrong to tell him? Did I destroy him further? Or was this the truth he needed? Part of me feels liberated, like I've finally shed the burden. But the mom in me is terrified. Reddit, am I the asshole for dropping this bomb? Or is this poetic justice for all the blame he's heaped on me? The house feels like a tomb now, silent except for the hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of the floorboards settling. It's been 2 days since Alex stormed out, and I keep checking my phone, hoping for a text, a call, anything. Nothing. His room's untouched clothes strewn across the floor, an empty energy drink can on his desk, like he's just stepped out for a minute. But he hasn't. I don't even know where he's staying. Part of me wants to track him down, beg him to come home. But another part, the part that's been carrying this secret for 28 years, feels like maybe this is what had to happen. Like lancing a wound to let the poison out. Still, the guilt is eating me alive. I keep replaying that night, wondering if I could have softened the blow. Or if I should have kept my mouth shut entirely. After Alex left, I sat on the couch until dawn, staring at the photo album I'd pulled out to prove my point. There's this one picture of David taken at a barbecue back when Alex was just a bump under my sundress. He's laughing, holding a spatula, his hazel eyes catching the sunlight. I hadn't looked at that photo in years, hadn't let myself. Seeing it again brought back the weight of that night, the wine. The loneliness, the way David's hand brushed mine when he passed me a wrench under the sink. It wasn't love, not even close. It was a moment of weakness, a crack in the dam of my marriage. But that crack gave me Alex. And no matter how messy things got, I'd never trade him for anything. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Couldn't face the dental office, the fake smiles, the chatter about patients' cavities. Instead, I drove to the park where I used to take Alex when he was little. There's this old swing set there, rusted now, where he'd begged me to push. Him, higher, mom, higher. I sat on a bench watching kids play, their parents hovering nearby, and I wondered where I went wrong. Was it keeping the secret? Raising him alone? Or was it something deeper? Some failure in me that Alex sensed and latched onto. His words from that night kept echoing. You raised me to be weak. God, that hurt more than anything. I tried calling David that afternoon. It's been years since we spoke. Last time was when Alex was in high school and David sent a check to help with his tuition. I told him not to, that we were fine, but he insisted. He's my kid too, Karen, he'd said, voice rough with something like regret. I never cashed that check, still in a shoebox under my bed. Anyway, his numbers changed, or maybe he blocked me. I left a voicemail, my voice shaking, explaining what happened, begging him to call back. He hasn't. Maybe he doesn't want to be dragged into this mess, and I can't blame him. I shut him out of Alex's life, thinking it was for the best. Now, I'm not so sure by the second day I was a wreck, barely sleeping, living on coffee, and regret. That's when my sister, Lisa, showed up. She's my rock, always has been, the only one who knew about David from the start. I'd confessed to her when I found out I was pregnant, sobbing in her kitchen while she made me tea. She never judged, just listened, and told me to do whatever protected Alex. Now, she sat across from me at the dining table, her eyes soft but stern. You had to tell him, Karen, she said. He's not a kid anymore. Can't keep blaming you for his choices. But what if this breaks him? I asked, my voice cracking. What if he hates me forever? Lisa leaned forward, grabbing my hand. He's angry. Yeah, he's hurt. But he's also got to figure out who he is now, knowing this. You carried that secret to protect him, but it's his truth too. He deserves to know, even if it hurts. Her words made sense, but they didn't ease the ache. I kept thinking about Alex's face when I told him how it crumpled, like he was 5 again, crying for his dad. I'd spent his whole life shielding him from pain, or so I thought. Maybe I was shielding myself, too scared of what the truth would do to our little world. That night, I got a text from Alex's friend, Jake, the only one of his buddies I actually like. He said Alex was crashing at his place, safe but not in a good headspace. I asked if I could come over, talk to him, but Jake said to give it time. He's processing Mrs. H. He's got questions, but he's not ready to face you yet. I thanked him, my hands trembling as I typed. At least he's safe. At least he's not alone. But the questions Jake mentioned, they're haunting me. What does Alex want to know? Does he want to find David? Does he hate me for lying all these years? Or is he wrestling with the fact that the dad he's been mourning, the one he's built up in his head as some lost hero, was never his to begin with? Ark. Wasn't a saint far from it? He abandoned us, built a new family, and barely looked back. But to Alex, he was a ghost to chase, a reason to explain his own struggles. Now that ghost is gone, replaced by a man he's never met. I keep wondering what David would say if he were here. Would he want to meet Alex? Be a father now, after all this time? David's got his own life last, I heard. He was remarried, living a couple of towns over, running his shop. I never told Alex about him, not even a hint, because I thought it'd confuse him, make him feel like he didn't belong anywhere. But maybe that was my mistake. Maybe I robbed him of a chance to know the man whose blood runs through his veins as I sit here. Typing this in the middle of the night, I'm torn between regret and relief. Telling Alex was like dropping a bomb on our lives, but keeping it in was killing me slowly. I just wish I knew what he's thinking, what he's feeling. Is he out there hating me? Or is he lost, trying to piece together who he is? I want to fix this, to hold him like I did when he was little and promise it'll all be okay. But I don't know if I can. I don't know if he'll let me. Lisa says to give him space, but every hour that passes feels like a year. I keep imagining him showing up at David's shop, demanding answers, or worse, tracking down Mark and confronting him. Mark doesn't even know the truth. How would he react? Would he care? Or would he just shrug it off like he did when he left us? The thought of Alex facing more rejection makes my stomach churn. I'm not sure what I'm asking for here, Reddit. Advice, absolution. I just needed to get this out to make sense of the chaos. Am I the asshole for telling Alex the truth? Or was this the only way to set us both free? All I know is my son's out there carrying a truth I hid for too long, and I'm terrified of what comes next. The silence in the house stretched into the third day, a heavy blanket that smothered every room. I'd taken to pacing the living room, my slippers wearing a path in the faded carpet, replaying every word I'd said to Alex that night. Mark isn't your real father. It sounded so cold now, so final, like I'd swung a hammer at the foundation of his world. I kept telling myself it was necessary, that his constant blame had pushed me to the edge. But doubt crept in like shadows at dusk. What if I'd waited for a calmer moment? What if I'd never told him at all? Lisa texted me every few hours, checking in, but her reassurances felt hollow. He's tough, Karen. He'll come around. Easy for her to say she wasn't the one who'd lied. For decades. That afternoon, I forced myself to go to the grocery store just to get out. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I pushed the cart down the aisles. Grabbing milk, bread, Alex's favorite cereal on autopilot. At the checkout, the cashier, a young girl with pink streaks in her hair, smiled and asked how my day was. I mumbled something about it being fine, but inside, I was screaming. How do you explain to a stranger that your son hates you because you finally told the truth? On the drive home, my phone buzzed. It was Jake again. He's heading your way. Heads up, my heart leaped into my throat. Alex was coming home. He showed up an hour later. Looking like he hadn't slept dark circles under those hazel eyes, his hair unkempt, wearing the same clothes from 3 days ago. He didn't knock, used his key and walked in, dropping his backpack by the door with a thud. I was in the kitchen pretending to chop vegetables for dinner, but my hands froze on the knife. Alex, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. You're back. Didn't look at me right away, just stood there in the doorway, arms crossed like a barrier. Yeah, I needed my stuff. His tone was flat, emotionless, but I could see the storm brewing in his eyes. He moved toward his room, but I stepped forward, desperate to bridge the gap. Wait, please, can we talk? I know you're angry. Angry. He whirled around, his voice rising. You think angry covers it, Mom? You dropped this bomb on me like it's nothing. All my life, you've been lying about Dad, Mark. Whatever. About everything. I flinched, setting the knife down before I cut myself. I did it to protect you. Mark was leaving anyway, and David... It was complicated. I thought if you believed Mark was your father, you'd have stability. A story that made sense. A story. He laughed, but it was bitter, hollow. My whole life's a lie. I spent years hating him for leaving, wondering why I wasn't good enough. And now I find out he's not even my dad, and the real one is some guy I've never met. Who the hell is? David, anyway, your side piece. The words hit like a slap. It wasn't like that, I said, tears welling up. It was one night a mistake. David was Mark's friend. Mark's friend, Alex's face twisted in disgust. Jesus, Mom. That's even worse. You cheated on Mark with his best buddy, then passed me off as his kid. What kind of person? Does that... I sank into a chair, my legs giving out. A scared one. A young one who didn't know how to handle it. I was 24, Alex pregnant, alone most of the time because Mark was always gone. David... He was there, and it just happened. But I loved you from the moment I knew you existed. I chose to raise you, to give you a life without the mess. He paced the kitchen, running hands through his hair without the mess. Look at me, 28, living. With my mom, no career, no future. You think that's not a mess? Maybe if I'd known the truth sooner, I could have. I don't know, connected with this David guy. Maybe he'd have taught me something useful, instead of me chasing a ghost dad who didn't give a shit. David wanted to be involved, I admitted, my voice small. Early on, after you were born, he asked about you. But I told him no, to stay away. I thought it would confuse you, make things harder with Mark. Alex stopped pacing, staring at me like I'd grown a second head. He wanted to. And you said no. God, Mom, you played God with my life. You decided what was best. Like always. Strict rules, no fun, working your ass off so I could have opportunities. But look where it got me nowhere. The blame was back, sharper now, laced with this new betrayal. I wanted to scream that I'd sacrificed everything, my youth, my dreams. Any chance at another relationship for him? But instead, I said, I'm sorry, I truly am. I could go back, but you can't, he cut in. And now what? Do I just pretend this didn't happen? Or do I go find this David dude and see if he's as screwed up as the rest of us? My breath caught. Have you thought about contacting him? He shrugged, but his eyes betrayed the turmoil. Jake looked him up online. Auto shop owner, lives in Milford. Married, no kids that we could find. Looks like me, from the pictures. Freaky as hell. I nodded, remembering David's Facebook profile I'd stalked years ago, happy photos with his wife, tools in hand, that same grin. If you want to meet him, I can help. I have his old number. No, Alex snapped. I don't need your help. You've helped enough. He grabbed a water from the fridge, slamming it shut. I'm staying at Jake's tonight. Just came for clothes. But this isn't over, Mom. I need answers, real ones, not your version. He disappeared into his room and I heard drawers opening, clothes being stuffed into a bag. When he came out, duffel slung over his shoulder, he paused at the door. You know, all those times I blamed you for Dad leaving. Maybe I wasn't wrong. You did drive him away, just not how I thought. The door clicked shut behind him, softer this time, but it echoed like a gunshot. I buried my face in my hands, sobs racking my body. He was right, I had driven Mark away, indirectly, with my secret? But more than that, I'd driven Alex away now too. The truth was supposed to set us free, but it felt like chains tightening. That evening, I called Lisa again, spilling it all through tears. He's going to find David. I said, what if David rejects him? What if this makes everything worse? Then, you deal with it, she replied firmly. But Karen, this is his journey now. You can't control it anymore. I hung up, feeling more alone than ever. Part of me hoped Alex would meet David, find some connection, maybe even forgiveness for me through it. But another part dreaded the fallout. What if David told his side, painted me as the villain? What if Alex came back even angrier? As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, my phone lit up. Text from an unknown number. This is David. Got your message. We need to talk. My heart raced. The past was crashing into the present, and I wasn't sure any of us were ready. The next morning, I met David at a coffee shop halfway between our towns and neutral ground. He called it. He looked older, grayer at the temples, but those eyes were the same. He hugged me awkwardly. Then we sat, steaming mugs between us like shields. Alex knows. I started, voice trembling. I told him everything. He's not handling it well. David nodded, stirring his coffee slowly. Figured as much from your voicemail. Kid's got a right to be pissed. You kept me out, Karen. I could have been there. I know, I whispered. I thought I was doing right by him. He sighed, leaning back. Water under the bridge, I guess. But if he comes looking, what do I say? That I knocked up my best friend's wife and walked away. You didn't walk away, I pushed you. Doesn't matter. He's my son, biologically. If he wants to know me, I'll try. But this is gonna stir up shit with my wife, my life. Guilt twisted in my gut. I'm sorry for dragging you in. Now, David shrugged. Should have been dragged in years ago. But hey, better late than never. We talked for an hour about Alex's childhood, his struggles, my regrets. David listened, asked questions, even laughed at stories of Alex's toddler antics. It was bittersweet, this glimpse of what could have been. As we parted, he said, "If he contacts me, I'll let you know. And Karen, you're not the only one who messed up here." Driving home, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe David could be the father Alex needed now? But that hope shattered when I got a call from Alex that night. "Mom," he said, voice edged with fury. I went to see Mark, told him everything. My world tilted. "You what?" "Yeah, tracked him down at his house. His perfect little family was their wife. Kids, I showed up, said I needed to talk. Told him, you're a liar, that I'm not his." He laughed at first, thought it was a joke. Then he got quiet, real quiet. Said it explained a lot, why I never felt like his. Tears streamed down my face. "Alex, why?" Mark didn't need to know because I deserved the truth from him too. He admitted he always suspected something, but buried it. Said leaving was the best thing he did. And get this, he's cutting off the child support remnants. Said since I'm not his, why bother? The line went dead. Mark knew now, and the fragile peace I'd built was crumbling. Alex's revenge, intentional or not, had hit its mark. I was the architect of this disaster, and now the fallout was just beginning. The phone slipped from my hand, clattering onto the kitchen table as Alex's words echoed in my ears. He'd gone to Mark, my ex-husband. The man who'd walked out on us without a backward glance, spilled everything. The secret I'd guarded for nearly 3 decades was out, not just to Alex, but to the one person who'd been blissfully ignorant all this time. Mark knew now that Alex wasn't his, and his response. To laugh it off and wash his hands clean, cutting whatever meager ties remained, I sat there, staring at the wall, numb. It felt like the final thread holding my life together had snapped. How had it come to this? A single moment of weakness years ago, snowballing into an avalanche that buried us all. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark's face, the smug grin he wore when he announced his new family, now twisted with this new revelation. Would he tell his wife, his daughters? Turn Alex into some family scandal whispered over dinner? And Alex, ... God, what was he feeling? Triumphant? Vindicated? Or just more broken? His voice on the phone had been laced with anger. But underneath, I heard the hurt. The little boy still searching for a father who cared. The next morning, I dragged myself to work, plastering on a smile for the patients while my mind raced. During my lunch break, I texted Alex, "Please come home. We need to talk about this." No response. I tried calling, but it went straight to voicemail. Desperate, I messaged Jake, "Is he okay?" He called last night, told me about Mark. Jake replied quickly, "He's here, crashing on my couch." Rough night. Give him space. Mrs. H. Space. Everyone kept saying that like it was a magic cure. But space felt like abandonment, like I was losing him all over again. That evening, David called back. We'd exchanged numbers at the coffee shop, and his voice was gruff, concerned. "Karen, what's going on? I got a weird visit today. My stomach dropped." "Alex?" "Yeah." Showed up at the shop, looking like hell. Demanded to know if it was true. If I was his ... you know. "What did you say?" I whispered, sinking onto the couch. The truth. Showed him pictures from back then, told him about that night, was pissed-gelled about how I should have fought harder to be in his life. I explained you shut me out, but he didn't want to hear it. Said you ruined everything. Tears pricked my eyes. Did he ... stay? Talk more a bit? Asked about my family, my life. Told him I'm married now, no kids. He got quiet, like it hit him that he could have had a different dad. Left angry, but he took my number. Said he'd think about it. Relief mixed with dread. At least David hadn't rejected him outright. But Alex was out there piecing together a new identity from fragments. And I was sidelined, watching from afar. Days blurred into a week. Alex didn't come home, but he texted sporadically curt updates, like "I'm fine" or "staying with Jake." I threw myself into routine, work, groceries, forcing down meals that tasted like ash. Lisa came over one night with takeout, trying to coax me out of my funk. "He's processing, Karen. This is huge. Give him time to sort through the anger." "But what if he never forgives me?" I asked, poking at my lo mein. "What if this is it me alone? Him hating me forever?" She squeezed my arm. "Then you fight for him. Show him the mom who's always been there, secret or no secret." Her words stuck with me. The next day, I dug out the shoebox from under my bed. One with old letters, photos, and that uncashed check from David. I spread it all on the table, timeline of my mistakes and loves. There was a letter from Mark, post-divorce, apologizing vaguely for leaving. Photos of Alex as a baby, his tiny hand in mine. And David's check, yellowed with age, a symbol of what I'd refused. I decided to write Alex a letter, the old-fashioned way, pouring out everything I couldn't say in person. "Dear Alex," I started, pen shaking. "I know you're hurting, and I know it's my fault. I lied to protect you, but I see now it was to protect myself, too. I was scared of losing you, of the judgment, of blowing up our world, but you deserved better. David is a good man. Give him a chance if you want. And Mark, ... I'm sorry he reacted that way. He was never the father you needed. But I try to be everything else. I love you more than anything. Please come home. Mom. I mailed it to Jake's address, hoping it'd reach him. 2 days later, my phone rang. "Alex. Got your letter," he said, voice neutral. "Did you read it?" "Yeah, it's a lot. I'm not ready to come home yet, but I met with David again. We talked. He's not what I expected." My heart skipped. "That's good, right?" "Maybe." He offered me a job at his shop part-time, learning the ropes. Said it could be a start. Tears welled up. "Alex, that's wonderful. Are you going to take it?" "I don't know. Feels weird, like charity. But ... it's something." We talked for 20 minutes, the longest conversation since the blow-up. He asked about my side of the affair, why I chose Mark over David. I was honest. Fear, youth, the illusion of stability. He listened, didn't yell, but ended with, "I need more time, Mom. This doesn't fix everything." It didn't, but it was a crack in the wall. Over the next weeks, Alex started the job with David. He'd text updates. "Fixed a carburetor today. Not bad." Or David's wife made dinner. Awkward, but nice. I clung to those messages like lifelines, picturing him building something new. But the peace was fragile. One night, Alex called in tears. "Mom, Mark's wife reached out. Said he told her everything, and she's furious. Thinks I might come after their inheritance or something. Told me to stay away." Rage boiled in me. "That's ridiculous. You're not. After anything? I know, but it hurts. Like I'm some dirty secret they want buried." "You're not," I said fiercely. "You're my son, and you're wanted." He sniffled. David said the same. Invited me to stay with them if I need. Jealousy flickered David, stepping in where I'd faltered, but I pushed it down. "That's what you want? Do it. Just ... don't forget me." "I won't," he promised softly. Alex moved in with David temporarily, a trial run. Stung seeing his room empty, but I visited once awkward coffee in their living room. David's wife, Sarah, was kind, if guarded. Alex looked different, more confident, grease under his nails. From the shop, we talked haltingly, avoiding the minefields, but it was progress. Then came the twist that nearly broke me again. Alex confessed over dinner one night. "I blamed you for everything because it was easier than admitting I'm scared. Scared of failing, of being like Mark, abandoning people. But knowing about David ... it makes me want to try harder. Tears streamed down my face. "You can, Alex. You will." He hugged me then, the first since the fight. "I'm sorry, Mom, for all the crap I said." "Me, too," I whispered. "For everything." But justice has a way of circling back. Weeks later, Mark called me first time in years. "Karen, we need to talk." Alex showed up again, demanding answers about why I left if I suspected. My pulse quickened. "What did you say? That you thought I was a coward?" But now, with this out, my wife's leaving me, says she can't trust me anymore, thinking I knew and stayed silent. Poetic justice, bitter and sharp. Mark, the leaver, now left. I didn't gloat, just said, "You made your choices. So did I." Hanging up, I felt a weight lift. Alex was finding his way with David as a guide, me as his anchor. It wasn't perfect scars. Remained, but we were rebuilding, truth by truth. Still, doubts linger. Was telling him revenge or release? Read it. You decide. Am I the asshole, or did fate finally balance the scales? Months passed like a slow thaw after a brutal winter, the kind where the ice cracks bit by bit, revealing the ground beneath. Alex stayed with David and Sarah for a while, dipping his toes into this new family dynamic while keeping one foot in. Our old life. He'd come over for dinner twice a week, at first stiff and formal, like a guest in his own home. We'd talk about, say things, his job at the shop. How he was learning to rebuild engines. The way David's stories from his college days with Mark made him laugh despite himself. But the undercurrent of hurt was always there, bubbling up in quiet. Moments, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" He'd ask sometimes, not accusatory anymore, but genuinely puzzled. Like piecing together a puzzle with missing edges, I tried to explain over and over in those dinners. Fear, Alex, pure fear. I was young, ashamed. Mark was already pulling away, and admitting the affair would have destroyed everything. I thought if I kept it buried, we could have a normal life. He'd nod, poke at his food, but I could see the deep wheels turning. He was forgiving me in layers, shedding resentment like old skin. David helped with that. Their bond grew steadily. Alex started calling him Dave instead of David, a casual shorthand that twisted my heart with jealousy and gratitude. Dave taught him not just about cars, but about resilient stories of his own divorce, building the shop from nothing. He's like the dad I imagined Mark could be, Alex admitted one night. And I smiled through the pang, but normalcy is fragile, especially when built on secrets. The first crack came when Sarah confided in me during one of my visits. We were in her kitchen, washing dishes after a barbecue where Alex and Dave had grilled burgers, laughing like old pals. "He's fitting in," she said, drying a plate, but stirring things up for Dave. Old regrets. I paused, suds dripping from my hands. "What do you mean?" She glanced toward the backyard where the guys were tossing a football. Dave never had kids. We tried, but it didn't happen. Now with Alex ... It's like a second chance, but it brings up the past. He talks about you sometimes. Wonders what life would have been if you'd chosen differently. Her words landed like a stone in my stomach. Chosen differently. I'd never seen David as an option back then, too raw, too complicated. But hearing it now from his wife made me question everything. Had I robbed David of fatherhood? Robbed Alex of a stable home? Sarah didn't say it with malice. She was kind, welcoming Alex despite the awkward origins. But the seed was planted, doubt sprouting anew. Alex noticed the shift in me. "You okay, Mom?" he asked later, driving me home. "You seemed quiet." "Just tired," I lied, staring out the window at the passing streetlights. But lies had caused enough damage. I couldn't add more. "Actually," Sarah mentioned, "Dave has regrets about not being there for you." He gripped the wheel tighter. "Yeah, we've talked about it. He said he respected your decision back then, but it hurt. Made him pull away from everyone for a while. Guilt-washed over me afresh. I'm sorry, Alex, for all of it." He sighed, pulling into our driveway. I know. We're past the apologies now. It's about moving forward. Forward we went, but the past has a way of circling back. Mark's call had been the harbinger. Now, the storm hit full force. It started with a letter in the mail official from a lawyer's office. My hands shook as I opened it. A demand to repay. Overpaid child support from Mark, claiming fraud since Alex wasn't biologically his. The amount: over $50,000 accumulated over the years in sporadic payments. Given the recent revelations, it read, Mr. Thompson seeks restitution for funds disbursed under false pretenses. I stared at the paper, disbelief turning to fury. Mark, the man who'd abandoned us, now wanted money back? As if those checks had ever been enough barely covering school supplies, let alone the life I'd built alone. I called Lisa immediately, ranting through tears. He's suing me. After everything, he's dragging this into court. That's low, even for him, she said. You need a lawyer, Karen. Fight this. I did, hired a local attorney, dipping into my meager savings. She was blunt. It's a stretch. Paternity fraud cases are tricky, especially after so long. But he might push for it out of spite. Spite? That? Sounded like Mark Holloway's the victim in his own story. I told Alex over the phone, bracing for his reaction. Mark's suing me for the child support. Says I defrauded him. Silence, then a curse. That bastard. After what he said to me, I'll handle it. But he hung up. Hours later, he showed up at my door, face thunderous. I called him, told him if he pursues this, I'll go public, tell his precious new family every detail. Maybe even the media. Single mom screwed over by deadbeat dad who now wants repayment. So ruin him. My eyes widened. You threatened him? Damn right. He's dropping it. Called back scared. Said it was his wife's idea anyway. She's the one pushing after their split. Relief flooded me, mixed with pride and worry. Alex, my boy who'd once blamed me for his weaknesses, now defending me like a lion. But revenge tasted bitter. It pulled us back into the muck. Thank you, I said, hugging him. But let's not stoop to his level. He pulled back, eyes fierce. Sometimes you have to, Mom. He hurt us too long. The lawsuit fizzled, but it reopened. Wounds. Alex started questioning more about my marriage to Mark. The signs I'd ignored. Did you love him? He asked one night as we sat on the porch with coffee. I thought I did, I admitted. But looking back, it was more about security. After the affair, guilt kept me there longer than I should have. He nodded thoughtfully. And David? Was it just one night? Or just one? I said firmly. But he was kind, Alex. Always was. Our conversations deepened, peeling back layers. Alex shared his own fears, how he'd sabotaged jobs and relationships, afraid of abandonment like Mark's. Knowing the truth, it makes me see I don't have to be him. Or you. I can be me. Tears pricked my eyes. You already are. And I'm proud. But the biggest twist came from David himself. Invited us both to dinner one evening, Sarah beaming. As she set the table over lasagna, he cleared his throat. Alex, Karen, ... I've been thinking I want to make this official. Get a DNA test. Acknowledge paternity legally. If you'll have me. Alex froze. Fork midway. You mean ... change my last name? Be your son on paper. If you want, David said, eyes misty. No pressure. But I've missed out on too much. Sarah and I talked. We're all in. I looked at Alex, my heart in my throat. This was what I'd feared, and hoped for a father stepping up. Alex glanced at me, searching for permission, but I smiled. It's your choice, honey. He swallowed hard. Yeah, let's do it. The DNA test was a formality. We all knew. But seeing the results 99.99% match brought tears all around. Alex became Alex Harper, David's last name. a fresh start. It hurt a little shedding the name I'd given him, but it healed more. He moved back home part-time, splitting between us, building bridges. Yet, as things settled, a new conflict brewed. Mark, emboldened or desperate after his divorce, reached out to Alex directly. Wants to meet, Alex told me, showing the text. Says he still considers me his son, blood or not. I scoffed. After the lawsuit threat, he's lonely now that his wife's gone. Alex agreed, but curiosity gnawed. What if I go? Hear him out. I wanted to say no, protect him from more pain. But I'd learned, if you need closure, go. Just remember who he is. He went, came back, shattered. Cried, Mom said. He regretted leaving, that suspecting the truth made him distant. Wants to make amends, help with money, be involved. Anger surged. Now, after 23 years, yeah, Alex said bitterly, I told him too late. That David's my dad now, walked out feeling ... free. That night, he hugged me tight. Thanks for telling me the truth. It sucked, but it led here. Poetic justice, indeed. Mark alone, us rebuilding. But is forgiveness next, or final cuts? Life's messy, Reddit. Thoughts? As the seasons shifted from summer's heat to autumn's crisp bite, our lives settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal almost. Alex, now officially Alex Harper, split his time between my house and David's. Like a kid in an amicable custody arrangement. He'd crash on my couch after late shifts at the shop, regaling me with tales of stubborn transmissions and David's endless dad jokes. Get it, Mom? I'm exhausted like the muffler, he'd say, grinning that lopsided smile that was pure David. I'd laugh even if it hurt a little to see how seamlessly he fit into that other world. But hurt was better than the void of before. At least now there was laughter echoing in my kitchen again. Work at the dental office kept me grounded. The routine of scheduling and small talk, a distraction from the what-ifs that still plagued my nights. What if Alex fully moved in with David? What if the name change severed our bond completely? But he always came back, bearing takeout or groceries, insisting on paying his way. His confidence grew. 2, he enrolled in night classes for auto mechanic certification, talking about maybe opening his own shop one day. Dave's teaching me the business side, he'd say. But you're the one who taught me grit, Mom. Those words were balm on old wounds, reminders that my sacrifices hadn't been in vain. David and I navigated our own tentative truce. We'd meet for coffee occasionally, updating each other on Alex-like co-prints, finally syncing calendars. He's a natural with engines, David said one morning, stirring sugar into his black brew. Reminds me of myself at that age, restless but driven. I nodded, tracing the rim of my cup. He's got your eyes, your laugh. But my stubbornness. David chuckled. Lucky kid. Then his face grew serious. Karen, about the past. I don't blame you anymore. We were all young, making messes. Sarah and I are happy he's here now. Sarah, she was the wild card in this new equation, warm on the surface, but I sensed undercurrents. During family dinners at their place, she'd watch Alex with a mix of affection and something sharper, like envy. They couldn't have kids. David had confided once, and Alex's arrival stirred that pain. She's thrilled, really, he assured me. Just adjusting. Hoped so. The last thing we needed was more drama. But drama, it seems, is drawn to us like moths to flame. It started small. Alex mentioning offhand that Mark had texted again, offering to catch up over lunch. Ignored it, he said, but his jaw tightened. Then a week later, while Alex was at my house watching a game, his phone buzzed incessantly. He glanced at it, face paling. It's one of Mark's daughters. My half-sister, I guess. My fork clattered to the plate. What does she want? He read. Aloud, Hey, Alex. Dad told us about you. The truth. We want to meet. No pressure, but family is family. Family. The word hung heavy. Mark's Girlsteins now had grown up in privilege, the life Alex might have glimpsed if things were different. "Do you want to?" I asked carefully. He shrugged, but his eyes betrayed curiosity. Maybe. They're innocent in this. But it feels like opening Pandora's box. He met them anyway, at a neutral cafe downtown. Came home buzzing with mixed emotions. "They're nice, Mom. Emily's 17, wants to be a doctor. Sophie's 15. Into art, they asked about you. Said Dad speaks highly of you sometimes." I snorted highly. "That's new, but get this, they hate how he treated us." Emily said their mom's divorce was messy because of old secrets coming out. They blame him, not you. Validation washed over me, unexpected and sweet. But it complicated things. Alex started texting them regularly, building sibling bonds across the chasm Mark had created. "It's weird, but good," he admitted. "Like filling in blanks I didn't know were there." Rising tensions simmered beneath the surface, though. David, upon hearing about the half-sisters, grew quieter. "Mark's pulling strings again," he muttered during one of our coffees. "Always was manipulative." "Alex's choice," I said, though. Doubt niggled. What if Mark used the girls to worm back in? The climax hit like a storm on a clear day. Alex invited me to a barbecue at David's, a family blend he called it, with Sarah, the half-sisters, and even Lisa for moral support. Mark wasn't invited, but the air crackled with his shadow. As burgers sizzled, Emily pulled Alex aside, her face serious. I watched from the deck, heart pounding. Later, Alex cornered me in the kitchen. "Mom, Emily told me something. Mark, he's sick. Cancer, early stages, but he's scared. Wants to make amends before it's too late." The world tilted. Mark, the invincible lever, now vulnerable. Amends how? "He wants to see me, apologize properly, and ... he mentioned you. Said he regrets everything, wants closure." Anger flared. "Closure. After suing me, abandoning you." Alex's eyes pleaded. "I know, but if he's dying, maybe I should hear him out." "He's not dying early stages," I snapped, then softened. "But it's your call. Just protect your heart." He went. The meeting lasted hours. Alex returned, drained, eyes red. He cried. Mom admitted he suspected the paternity but was too proud to confront it. Said leaving was cowardice, that his new family was his escape. Wants to add me to his will, help with my SAT classes. "Money doesn't fix pain," I said bitterly. "No, but forgiveness might." Alex looked at me, searching. What if we all met? You, me, him. Clear the air. The idea repulsed me. But for Alex, I agreed. The meeting was at a park, neutral ground. Mark looked older, thinner, chemo looming. His eyes widened, seeing me. "Karen, ... you look good. Save it," I said coolly. We sat on benches, Alex between us like a referee. Mark spoke first, voice trembling. I was wrong. To leave, to suspect and not ask, to sue. I was angry when Alex told me felt betrayed. But I betrayed you first. You did, I agreed. Left me to raise him alone, while you played house elsewhere. He nodded, tears falling. I'm sorry, to both of you. Alex spoke up. Why now? Because you're sick. Partly, Mark admitted. But also because losing my wife made me see what I lost before. I want to be better, even if late. We talked for hours raw, painful truths spilling out. My affair, his neglect, the lies that bound us. By the end, exhaustion hung heavy, but so did a tentative peace. I forgive you, Alex said finally. But don't expect Dad's status. That's Dave's now. Mark accepted, hugging him awkwardly. To me, he said, thank you for raising our year son so well. As we left, Alex squeezed my hand. You okay? Strangely, yes. Forgiving didn't erase the past, but it lightened the load. Back home, life evolved. Alex aced his certification, started dating a girl from class steady kind. David and Sarah hosted holidays. Mark sent cards, respectful from afar. The half-sisters became fixtures, sleepovers, and all. One night, Alex proposed a toast at dinner. Too truth messy, but freeing. And to Mom, who held it all together. Glasses clinked, tears mingled with laughter. Justice wasn't revenge. It was this healing whole. But doubt's whisper, was forgiveness too easy? Or the ultimate twist? Reddit? Weigh in. With the park meeting behind us, a fragile calm settled over our patchwork family. Like the eye of a storm, isn't done raging. Alex seemed lighter, unburdened by the grudges he'd carried like extra weight. He'd text me memes from work, show up unannounced with coffee and donuts, chattering about his certification classes and how Emily and Sophie were planning a sibling weekend getaway. It's weird, Mom, but in a good way. He'd say, his hazel eyes sparkling with that newfound energy. David called it the Harper Glow, a joke that made me smile even as it reminded me how much Alex had changed. Literally and figuratively, he was building a life that extended beyond me, and while I was proud, a quiet loneliness crept in. Whispering that maybe I'd held on too tight for too long, I threw myself into distractions, joining a book club at the library, where older women, like me, swapped stories of wayward kids and ex-husbands over tea and scones. Sounds like you've got a soap opera on your hands, one lady, Martha, quipped when I shared a sanitized version of our drama. But hey, at least there's a happy ending brewing, was there? Forgiveness felt good in the moment, but doubts nagged. Mark's tears at the park, were they real, or just another performance from the man who'd always known how to sell a story? And Alex, forgiving so readily, ... Was he truly at peace, or papering over cracks that would split wide later? The first ripple came during one of our weekly dinners. Alex arrived late, flushed and excited, his phone buzzing nonstop. Met someone, he announced, sliding into his chair with a grin. Her name's Mia, from my mechanics class. We're going. Out this weekend, my heart swelled finely. A healthy relationship for him. Tell me everything, I said, serving up lasagna. He did. How she was smart, funny, with a tattoo of a wrench on her arm and dreams of racing cars. She's got her shit together, Mom. Makes me want to step up. We toasted 2 new beginnings, but as he left, I couldn't shake a twinge of unease. What if Mia pulled him further into his new world, away from the one we'd shared? David sensed it. When we met for our next coffee update, "You're quiet," he noted, his rough hands cradling his mug. "Worried about the girl? A little," I admitted. He's changing so fast. Name, job, now this. Feels like I'm losing him. David's eyes softened. You're not losing, you're sharing. Sarah and I love having him around, but you're still his mom. Always will be. His words helped, but the loneliness persisted. Nights alone in the house. I'd scroll through old photos on my phone, Alex's first steps. School plays, the 2 of us at amusement parks where I'd splurge on cotton candy to make up for Mark's absence. Now, those memories felt distant, overshadowed by the present. Lisa dragged me out for walks, lecturing me on self-care. You've spent your life putting him first, Karen. Time to find your own path. Maybe she was right. I started volunteering at a local shelter, helping single moms with resumes and job hunts. It was fulfilling, seeing echoes of my struggles in their eyes, offering advice born from hard-won experience. You did it alone, one woman said, after I helped her land an interview. Gives me hope. Hope, that's what I clung to. Even as the next storm brewed, it started with a call from Emily, Mark's eldest daughter. Her voice was shaky on the line. Ain't Karen Ken? I call you that. Dad's acting weird. He told us about the cancer, but I overheard him on the phone. It doesn't sound real. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? He was laughing with his lawyer, saying something about playing the sympathy card to get back in Alex's good graces. I think he lied about being sick. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. Lied. Mark fabricating cancer to manipulate us. If it fit his pattern the charm, the half-truths. But this was a new low, desecrating something sacred for his own gain. Are you sure? I pressed. Pretty sure. Sophie heard it too. We confronted him, but he denied it. Got angry. Said we were imagining things. I thanked her, mind reeling. I tell Alex, shatter the fragile forgiveness he'd extended. Or investigate first, spare him more pain. I chose the latter, calling my lawyer from the lawsuit days. Dig into Mark Thompson's medical records if you can, I said. Discreetly, while waiting, tension coiled in my gut. Alex noticed during our next dinner, his brow furrowing. You okay, Mom? You seem off. Just work stress. I lied, hating how easily it came. But the truth would explode everything I needed. Proof. The lawyer called back 2 days later. No records of cancer diagnosis. I pulled strings, nothing at his doctor's office. No treatments billed. He's healthy as a horse. Fury ignited, hot and righteous. Mark had played us using a fake illness to worm back in, probably eyeing reconciliation or control. Poetic justice. This felt like the universe demanding real accountability. I debated confronting him myself, but Alex deserved to know first. I invited him over that night, heart pounding as I laid out the evidence. Emily's call. The lawyer's findings. He listened, face paling, then darkening with rage. That son of a bitch, he growled, slamming his fist on the table. I forgave him, opened up, and it was all a lie. I'm sorry, honey. I didn't want to believe it either. Alex paced, tears of frustration glistening. Why? To what end? Get me. In his will. Make himself feel better. Probably all of it. I said softly. He's always been about control. He stopped, looking at me with raw vulnerability. What do I do now, Mom? Feel like an idiot. You're kind-hearted. That's my boy. I hugged him, his shoulders tense under my arms. We face it together. Tell David, the girls. Expose the lie. He nodded, resolve hardening. The next day, he called a family meeting me, David, Sarah, Emily, and Sophie via video. Mark wasn't invited, but his deception was the star. Emily confirmed her suspicions, Sophie adding details of overheard conversations. David fumed, that manipulative prick. Always was, Alex decided. A direct confrontation. I need to end this for good. We went together to Mark's house, the one he'd built with his second wife before she left. He answered the door, surprise flickering to wariness. Alex Karen. This cut the crap, Alex said, voice steady. We know about the cancer lie. Emily heard you. We checked records. It's bullshit. Mark's face crumpled, but not with remorse, with defeat. How did you? Doesn't matter, I interjected. Why? Mark, after everything, why fake something so vile? He sagged against the doorframe. I was losing everything. My wife, my girls turning against me. When Alex came back, it felt like a chance. I exaggerated the health scare to ... speed things up. Make amends before it was too late. Exaggerated. Alex scoffed. You invented it. Do you know how that made me feel? Pitying you? Forgiving you? Mark's eyes pleaded. I'm sorry, truly, I just wanted my son back. I'm not your son, Alex said coldly. Never was. Biologically or otherwise. Stay away from me, from Mom, from the girls, if they choose. We left him there, broken on his doorstep. The tables turned in the cruelest way. Driving home, Alex was quiet, processing, feels like closure. Real this time. It does. I agreed. But inside, satisfaction warred with pity. Mark, alone with his lies, poetic justice at its royest. Back home, Alex stayed the night, like old times. We watched movies, ate popcorn, talked until dawn. Thanks for being there, Mom. Through all the mess. Always, I whispered. But as he slept, I wondered, is this the end or just another layer? Betrayal runs deep, healing deeper still. Reddit, did we handle it right or invite more chaos? The fallout from Mark's deception settled like ash after a fire, leaving a quiet that was both peaceful and uneasy. Alex moved back home full-time. His room no longer a way station, but a lived-in space, again tools scattered on his desk, his laundry piling up like he was a teenager. It was comforting having him close, but I could sense the weight he carried. The residue of Mark's lies mixing with the ongoing adjustment to David as his father. He'd throw himself into work at the shop, come home smelling of motor oil, and collapse on the couch with a tired grin. Dave says I'm getting good. He'd tell me, pride in his voice. Might take over the shop one day. I'd nod, smile, but inside I braced for the next tremor. Life had taught me that calm was often just the pause before the next storm. That storm brewed subtly at first. Alex's relationship with Mia deepened, and she became a fixture at our dinners, sharp-witted, with a laugh that filled the room and a knack for challenging Alex in ways that made him better. "She keeps me honest, Mom," he said one night, helping me with dishes while Mia napped on the couch after a long shift at her own garage. "Like you, but ... less momish." I swatted him with a dish towel, laughing, but the comparison warmed me. Mia was good for him, grounding him in ways I couldn't anymore. But her presence also meant my role was shifting. Less protector, more bystander. It stung even as I cheered them on. David and Sarah, meanwhile, embraced their new normal with Alex. They'd host game nights, invite the half-sisters, even me sometimes. Sarah's initial wariness had softened. She'd share recipes, ask about my shelter volunteering, treat me like a friend rather than the woman who'd complicated her husband's past. But during one of these nights, as we played cards and laughed, over Alex's terrible poker face, David pulled me aside. "Karen, we need to talk about the future." My stomach tightened. Future. Alex, he's thriving, but Sarah and I were thinking, what if he moves in with us permanently? We've got the space, and he's talking about staying long-term in Milford. The words hit like a punch I didn't see coming. Lose Alex to David's world entirely. My throat closed up. "He's happy here too," I managed. "He just moved back." "I know," David said, eyes kind but firm. "But he's building something with us, with the shop. We don't want to take him from you, Jess. Share him more." Share, that word again, slicing through my heart. I nodded, forcing a smile, but drove home in silence. Alex's chatter beside me a blur. That night, I lay awake, wrestling with selfishness versus what was best for him. Hadn't I kept enough from him already? Yet letting go felt like losing the last piece of who I'd been as mom, his everything. The next day, I confronted my fears head on, sitting Alex down after breakfast. "David mentioned you moving to Milford permanently. That what you want?" He froze, pancake halfway to his mouth. "Told you? It's not set in stone, Mom. Just an idea. The shop's there, Mia's there, ... But I'm not leaving you." Relief flooded me, but I pressed. "If it's what's best for you, I'll support it. I just need to know." He set his fork down, eyes serious. "You're my home, Mom. Always will be. But yeah, I'm thinking about it. Dave's like ... a second chance at a dad. And with Mia, it feels like I'm finally building something." I swallowed hard, nodding. "Then explore it. Just don't forget your old lady." He grinned, hugging me. "Never." But the conversation planted a seed of change, and with it came new tensions. Emily and Sophie, now regular parts of Alex's life, started pushing for more family unity. "Why can't we all just be one big family?" Sophie asked during a video call, her teenage idealism shining through. "Dad's sorry, Alex. Maybe we could all do holidays together?" Alex scoffed after his cancer stunt. "No way." Emily, older and more pragmatic, chimed in. "It's not perfect, but he's trying. He's been talking about you nonstop. wants to make things right. I watched Alex's face tighten, the old wounds reopening. Right? By lying again? Done with his games. The girls backed off, but their words lingered. Mark's persistence was a shadow we couldn't shake. He'd send gift stools for Alex, books for the girls, each with handwritten notes dripping with remorse. I know I messed up one read, but I'm still here, hoping. Alex tossed them in a drawer unopened, but I saw him pause, thumb tracing the handwriting. Closure wasn't as clean as he'd hoped. The real climax came unexpectedly. At a car show where Alex and David were showcasing a restored Mustang, I went to support, proud to see Alex in his element explaining engine specs to a crowd. Mark showed up uninvited, looking frail not from illness, but the weight of his unraveling life. He approached Alex, hands raised like a white flag. "Just want to see you shine, son." Alex stiffened, but the crowd kept him civil. "Don't call me that, you lost that right." Mark's face fell. "I know, but I raised you for 5 years. That's gotta count." "It doesn't," Alex snapped, voice low but fierce. "You left. Dave's here now. Mom's always been. Here." Mark glanced at me, standing nearby, and his eyes held a plea. "Karen, tell him I'm trying." I stepped forward, voice steady. "Trying now doesn't erase then, Mark. You hurt him. Let him heal on his terms." The crowd thinned, giving us space. Mark nodded, defeated. "I'll back off. But I'll always care. Alex, blood or not." He left and Alex exhaled, shaking. David clapped his shoulder. "You handled that like a man." Back home, Alex broke down, the weight of it all spilling out. "I hate him, Mom, but I feel bad for him. Is that messed up?" "No," I said, holding him. "It's human. You've got a big heart." The resolution came quietly, over months. Alex chose to stay in Milford part-time, renting a small apartment near David's shop, but keeping his room at home. Mia moved in with him, their relationship a steady anchor. He invited me to their place warming, where David toasted two family messy but ours. Sarah hugged me, whispering, "You did good, Karen." Even Emily and Sophie attended, their presence a bridge to a past we'd all survived. Mark faded into the background, sending occasional texts Alex rarely answered. The girls kept ties, but Alex set boundaries, protecting his peace. My volunteering grew into a part-time job at the shelter, fulfilling in ways I hadn't expected. I started dating a widower from book club, slow and cautious, but hopeful. One night, Alex and I sat on the porch, stars bright above. "I'm proud of you, Mom," he said, "for telling the truth, for sticking by me." "I'm proud of you," I countered, "for finding your way." He smiled, David's eyes in my son's face. "We're okay, aren't we?" "Yeah," I said, heart full. "We're okay." Justice wasn't just Mark's downfall. It was us, rising scarred, but whole. Read it? Did we earn this peace, or tempt fate by forgiving too much?